Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Just Noise. And today I'm very excited that we have branched overseas and we have our first international guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh my gosh, I didn't know. It's the first international.
Little pressure.
Oh my god, hi. My name is Mori.
Very nice, thank you. Do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself, where you're based, and the type of music that you make?
Yeah, of course. I am based in New York. I've been out here for almost 2 years now. Before that, I was in Boston studying at Berklee College of Music. And before that, I was kind of all over the place. I was born in Buenos Aires, and then I moved to Panama and moved back and ended up landing in Portland, Oregon, which is where I grew up for most of my life before college. But yeah, I got into songwriting around 5, 6 years ago, I want to say. I didn't really seriously pick it up until my sophomore year of college. Um, and yeah, I kind of have been fitting pretty nicely into the like singer-songwriter acoustic indie niche, but I love a whole different slew of artists because I grew up in so many different places. So I think I have a lot of different influences. But yeah, I definitely write most akin to like a Leith Ross, Lizzie McAlpine, Zero's kind of world. So that's me.
Very nice. I like to start each episode with a few questions that are very much just so people can get to know you a little bit better if they haven't come across you before. So, first one being, what are three projects that you're really loving at the moment?
Oh my God. Okay.
The hardest question ever.
No, but I can answer this because I've been listening to so much music recently. Um, okay. Is this cheating if I say one of my friends? I feel like that's
No, no, not at all.
okay. My guitarist, actually, his name is Benji Jimenez. He put out an album called Obscure Sorrows, which is like one of the best things I've ever heard in my whole life. And I'm not just saying that because I'm biased. Um, who else am I loving right now? I'm really loving the band After. They put out an EP called After. It's just self-titled and it's like very old 2000s type of pop vocal. It's really, really, really cool. And then the last one I'll say that I'm really digging. What have I been listening to? Oh, I listened to Lizzie McAlpine's Older and Wiser Deluxe on the plane back from Miami to New York, which was a bad call because it was really, really sad. But yeah, I guess you can say, oh, Ray. Ray is another
Yeah.
one I'm like really, really rooting for right now.
Lovely. I love that. I love asking people because I'm so like, I'll just go and listen afterwards. I like love pinching
Yeah.
out people's brains. Outside of music, what are like your hobbies and interests?
I have a day job in marketing, so I work with a music licensing network based actually in London. But my boss thankfully is on the East Coast, so I work New York hours, and entirely remote, but I've always kind of been in the music marketing, digital marketing world. I tend to like nerd out about that stuff because I just think it's so fascinating. Like the digital landscape of music. And we solely work in the independent sector. So it's been really cool to work with members and partners that are not owned or fall under the umbrella of major labels. That's been a really interesting world to learn more of because it truly is such a big umbrella. So that's the bulk of what I do. Yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of like, it's the top of the year, so I'm like coming in hot with a lot of ambitions of like, I want to read more and
Yeah. I
work out
mean,
more, but you know.
that goes straight into my next question, really, because my final
Oh,
question was
okay.
ins and outs for 2026. So
I
sort of
do have a
perfect.
I do have a list. Let me pull this list up because my friend does this every year and she asked me to send her my list, and so I actually have it ready. My ins for this year. The first one is saying yes for the sake of community and showing up when you don't feel like it. But that goes hand in hand with like dedicated rest and relaxation days. Like everyone has to take one day out of the week where they can just go on do not disturb and not talk to anyone. And no one can get mad at you. And then the third one I have is coupons. I think we should bring back couponing. Everything's really expensive right now, and I feel like that was a nice part. Um, and what else? Oh, making TikToks in public. No more embarrassment and shame. Um, Physical media, print, vinyl, CD, VHS, candlelit showers instead of overhead lighting, and then lipstick and no other face makeup, like very French.
Loving.
Then my outs are $7 to $9 lattes. Any storefront of any kind closing before 9 p.m. in New York. Helping people who are like houseless or disenfranchised and filming it. Like I can't express to you the anger that passes through my body.
Yeah.
Um, Matcha and oat milk, that one's less serious, but I think people are pretending to like those things. Um, and my last one is Bushwick, which is
Fair enough.
it's part of Brooklyn, but
Yeah.
not in my heart.
Lovely. So going straight into your musical journey then, I like to ask every single person that comes onto the podcast this. Earliest memory of music, the first time that you have a conscious memory of music.
My earliest memory of music is the 7 years without, or no, not 7 years without rain, a year without rain, music video by Selena Gomez. It would play between, back when Disney Channel would play like music videos
Mm.
between commercial breaks, and they would play the full thing every time. And that was like the first thing I saw where I was like, wow. So definitely that.
And would you say, so your upbringing, did you have a musical upbringing, or was that something that you did sort of discover later?
Not really, in the sense that like no one in my family, my parents weren't musical people. They they loved to host. Like that's one thing I'll say. We always had people over, like every single night they were hosting some sort of dinner party, or we were hosting family or friends from not the US. And so my parents had a lot of hosting music. So I grew up on like Nora Jones and Sarah Bareilles and a lot of those kind of like jazzier, low key artists. And then for my actual like influence family wise, I think my sister was a singer before I was, and she was in musical theater, but I think she started maybe a little bit too late to really like pick up and fall super in love with it. But at the time, I'm 6 years younger than her, so when I was 8, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna do what she's doing.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of stuck. So
Lovely. And who would you say are some of your like major influences and inspirations? Maybe both growing up, like people that first sort of opened your eyes to it, and then also maybe how that's transitioned as you've grown.
yeah, I would say it's kind of all over the map. We did a project about this at Berkeley actually, our senior year. It's like your musical DNA project where you have to trace back basically like 5 generations of your lineage musically.
Mm,
So you go to your favorite artists and you research who their favorite artists were and you trace that back five
that's
times
really cool.
to find like your grandparents, your great grandparents, and all that stuff. So I learned a ton of like where my influences actually come from that way. But I grew up doing, I was a competitive hip hop dancer, which is like not something that I think most people would guess about me. But I listened to a lot of like hip hop, R&B, and soul music for that reason. So I was really big on Tiana Taylor, Frank Ocean, her. Like those are some of my deep influences back before I even picked up songwriting. Then I was also in musical theater, so I think Ben Platt was another one, and Sarah Bareilles, like I mentioned. Um, and then I think once I started getting into college, my early influences were Isabel Pless, Jensen McCrae, Leanna Firestone, Madeline the Person, like very articulate and I would say more like pushing theatrical style singer-songwriters. And it wasn't until a lot later that I got into Lizzie and kind of the rest of the world. So that's probably a good representation of my first influences there.
Very interesting. So I watched obviously your videos that you made about being an independent artist, and from that, I wanted to ask, what ways do you think you've learned the most and grown the most? Because you seem, very well informed, and obviously hearing about what you do for your work now, obviously is a huge part of that. But yeah, how do you think you've sort of learned and grown the most to be where you are now, and maybe like tips, I guess, for people that are wanting to do what you're doing?
For like independent artists?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, Gosh. What a question. I think you will never stop learning how to do this career because it's just constantly changing. And I think I initially was pretty frustrated in college because a lot of my professors, like, they were incredibly talented and very, very intelligent, but a lot of them hadn't been actively working in the industry for like 20 plus years. And so most of the information that we were being taught wasn't necessarily applicable in today's landscape, especially with how digital streaming works now and
Mm.
social media and all of that. So I think that I was always interested, um, just from the jump. Yeah, I would say before I even started doing music seriously as a career, I was always posting online. Like constantly I was filming myself. I have like a big desktop computer back home and it's full. It is just full of like videos of me when I was like 7 years old, talking to the camera as if I was an influencer before I knew what that even was. But yeah, so I think it's infinitely easier to share um your life online as an indie artist when you were already doing that before. So I will say that I had a bit of an advantage there because I just didn't
Yeah.
care about social media in that way. Um, and then when I was looking into careers in music, but not necessarily, it's hard to shadow um an artist career. Like there's no internship that you can really do um to pay the bills before you really like make it big. It's kind of just this lifelong practice that you commit to. So obviously every artist turned to different ways to make money while they're pursuing music. And one of the things that I fell into was digital marketing. So I worked at a recording studio in Manhattan my junior year, and that was kind of the first plunge I took without knowing anything. I just like faked all my knowledge. I made like their website and their logo, and we worked directly with the artists that were coming in to record our studio. So that was good because I got to just talk to them and hear about their goals and why they're not as comfortable maybe posting online or what they want their aesthetic to be and all of that fun stuff. And then I had another job that was more like web development based and like e-commerce, but that also still helped me like organizationally. There's so much that goes into the back end of the digital world. And so I think both of those prepared me for my current job, which like I said has been so eye-opening because we don't work directly with artists, but we work directly with labels and distributors and like rights organizations. So I get to see like, oh, here's Bonnie Vare, who's signed to Jaguar, who is technically under this distributor, so they're technically like under the independent umbrella. And it's like no one in their right mind would be like, oh yeah, Bonnie Vare is an indie artist, but there you go. So learning how big that world is was really, really helpful. And then just like my own research online, like I looked into, I mean, back in like the 2020, 2021 craze of TikTok, I feel like it was so easy for people to get picked up and go viral in 2 seconds. Like anyone could have gone viral on TikTok at that
Mm.
time. And then I think that's when a lot of like labels did their artist acquisition and then they were like, okay, awesome. Rinse and repeat this for us. And when artists couldn't do that because the TikTok algorithm was so specific, they got dropped. And so in the last 3 years, I've like really looked into why that's happening. And there's a ton of information online that I think obviously you gotta want to know about to go and seek out. But yeah, I think it's really cool. And I always say like if there had been a code that was cracked, um, that would, push a button and make indie artists viral or famous or whatever you want to call it, labels would be doing it every day. They would be hitting the button left and right, and they're not because there's not really a way to do it. There's no code to crack. There's like formulas you can replicate in terms of the type of content you post and how often you post it. But really, it's just a matter of knowing who's tuning in. Like, that's what I've found to be the most impactful. And for me to plan my content around people and the followers that I know are always, always going to interact and engage with what I'm posting. So that started out with a group of like 5 girls. Um, and I know them all by name. And like, I probably 2.5 years ago noticed like they were the main people that were like always engaged with my posts. I was like, okay, great. And I put us all in a Zoom call and I started like doing Zooms with them when I was writing songs. They helped me like weed out songs for my first album or my second EP, and like it starts really small and then they tell their friends about it. And yeah, I think far beyond like what do I post and how often and what type of content and kind of getting into the weeds of that, it's just like get to know who's even listening to you right now. And start there because then it's a lot easier to scale upwards. And if you're curious about the back end side of like Instagram and TikTok and what does best from an algorithmic standpoint, you can look at like studies on that and research on that, and that will help you just kind of internalize how the game, like the robot works. But that shouldn't be your focus, I don't think. Like if you're an independent artist, your focus should be with who your audience is and how you can best translate what it is that you do for them. And then the robot and the back end side comes after.
Yeah, no, I think it's so true what you said there as well, because I think there's, it's situations where you see people trying to replicate someone else's journey sort of into the mainstream,
Yeah.
and that's their journey, and there's so many different ways that you can do it. So to talk about your album, came out almost exactly 3 months ago now, which
God.
yeah, I was gonna say feels crazy. It can't be you. How does it feel now that that's out in the world? How has it been received? Yeah, just generally putting it out, how's that felt for you?
It's been good. I think it the lead time for a lot of these projects is so long. Like I think the oldest song on that album is Honest About It, which I wrote back in 2023. And so going into the recording process of all these songs, it was like a span of 2 years, 2.5 years that I'd written everything. So putting that all together in like 2 weeks of recording was such a trip, for many reasons. Like emotionally, you're no longer in the same place and you have to kind of like catapult back. Also, like over half the songs were not finished when I walked into recording when I was out in LA with my production team. So I walked in, they were like, okay, let's record. And I was like, so, but yeah, a lot of them we finished in, I'm like in the studio. It's like a home studio and it's really intimate and friendly and low key. But um, yeah, it was weird for me to think about all these songs coming out just because they're all from such different periods of my life. And yeah, I'm glad I work with like very, very smart producers and engineers, and it all felt very cohesive in the end. And honestly, it was like, I think I've said this in an interview before, but the fastest that I've ever put together like a track list for anything. It was like back to back. One of my producers and I, his name's Cam, we sat down and we just like listened to each demo back to back. And every time we were like, oh yeah, that one should go here, this one here. Like it was took us all of like 15 minutes. So once that was going and I felt better about it, then I was a lot more excited to put the whole album out. But yeah, it's been good. I mean, I tried to capitalize as much as I could on like songs that already had maybe a push from social media. Like The Hill I Die On was an example from my last EP before the album where I knew that one had done well. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna push for this to get done and sound um how I want it to sound and be on this project. So there's a few like that, like Honest About It was a big one. And I think When I Talk About It had originally done okay on social media as well. So there's a couple tracks that I focused on, and then the rest of them I filled in. Like I knew I had a good idea of what I wanted to be on the project. So the production process, as trippy as it was to like put everything together, and I was like, I don't know about all of this. Um, it felt really good to finally just get it off of the page and into the mic. Um, and then yeah, the release was cool. It was my first time. I signed on to distribution with the distro deal back in April. So it was my first time not distributing independently, which was definitely like a learning experience for so many reasons, like using a different distributor platform and talking to different people and kind of approaching the release rollout a bit differently. So I pushed a bit more for like playlist ads and the marketing side of things. And I still like fell short, and I don't really like beat myself up about that, or at least I try not to, because you can't always get to everything that you want to do for a release cycle, but um I did what I thought would be impactful. So like I think for the first single, what was it? Honest About It. That was the one that landed on Fresh Finds Folk on Spotify, which was like my first ever editorial, and I was like, wow. Um, but that one, I think I used like independent pitching for that, which was awesome because it wasn't even through my distributor, and I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, okay, I can do this. Um, and then I didn't happen for any other song. I was like, okay, let's recalibrate. So then going into like the full album release and track list reveal, I don't know if you saw, but I did a project essentially with my like main listeners, and like this is what I'm talking about with the audience that I know is always
Yeah, I
engaging.
think I briefly saw something about it, yeah.
Yeah, I had them like help me reveal the track list. So I
Yeah,
basically
they had like
sent them,
samples and everything, yeah.
yeah, I sent them all like individual physical mail with like a photo from the photo shoot that we did for the album cover, and then it had I like collaged the titles of each track name and wrote on the back like a bit about the song, and I sent those out like a week or two before the official track list went live. So that was really fun because it felt like they were part of it, and that was like the most meaningful thing I could think of doing. So it was very cathartic in the release, and like again, I just tried to push the needle where I could, but I couldn't think of everything, and also like not everything goes to plan, and that's okay. But yeah, all things considered, to answer your question, it's been great. I did not know how it would be received. I was constantly deterred away from doing a full length album because everyone I spoke to, industry wise, like managers, A&Rs, they were all like, stick to singles, stick to EPs. That's what catches people. That is what will increase your listeners. And I was like, no, though, because I was just so married to this these 10 songs. Like I wanted them to go out together. So it ended up being an album, and I was like, all right, well, hope for the best. So yeah, it's good. I think it's almost at like 500,000 streams now, which is like actually mind blowing to me. But more than that, it's helped me reach some of my favorite artists in the world, which is really the only thing that I can hope for.
Yeah, no, it was really interesting when you said about obviously the Hill I Die On, like the
Mhm.
success of that prior to the album as well. That's how algorithmically I got, put onto you.
Oh.
It was artists who sound like Hetta Thousand, and it put the Hill I Die on there, which is really funny. So that's an artist I've had in the podcast before. You spoke about the songs obviously being written across a period of time where you're all in like different periods of your life. Would you say that there is a general theme to the album still, like even though you're pulling from different aspects there?
Yeah, for sure. This is unlike my EP, which was about like several different situations and different people. There's like some friendship losses in there as well. With the album, this was the first and I hope only project that I sat down and knew I was like, okay, these are all songs about the same person. And that that is both a positive, not a negative. I would say there's it's nuanced to know that like all 10 songs, all 10 tracks on a body of work are detailing the same kind of experience. But like my hope always is that like the audience does not pick up on that. Obviously there's going to be like, and on purpose, like a lot of lyrical ties between the songs, and like it's supposed to feel cohesive. So it should feel that way. But I also like hope always that People will take away whatever they want to take away from the music. That's always the goal.
The title of the album, was that something that jumped out to you that you kind of had stuck, or was that something?
That was like the second I wrote It Can't Be You, which was like 5 days before I left Boston to move to New York. Um, and the person that the full album is about is originally like from New York, from Warwick, which is why that's a song on there as well. But the second I wrote It Can't Be You, like literally a week after graduating, I was like, oh, that's it. Like this has to
Yeah.
be the title of the whole album. So from then on, it was pretty easy to piece together. But yeah, it was definitely something that I kind of knew instantly, which doesn't always happen, but I did this time.
And you write all by yourself. Is that something that you've always done, been drawn to? How are you sort of inspired in that way?
Yeah, to be honest, I think it was like a knowledge issue because I didn't know until very recently how separate the songwriting industry really is from the artist and music industry generally. I took a trip to Nashville in August and I hopped into like a couple of different co-writing sessions because it's something that's always been like popular and always been a tool, I think, for many artists, but I didn't know that. Like, I simply just thought up until like 2 or 3 years ago that in order to be an artist, you had to also be a writer. I did not know that they really existed without the other. Not in like a very deliberate way, at least. So once I got to Nashville, I was like, oh shit, like this is really like there are full-on producers who will come into a session and sorry, full-on writers who will come into a session and that's their job. And like how cool and how balls to the wall insane for me to even consider like going into a room and like having detachment from the start of like knowing this is not going to be you performing this song. Like it takes such a large chunk of ego out of it, and I think probably is what contributes to a lot of like the best songs in the world. So it's definitely something that I'm interested in moving forward. I will say it's not necessarily on purpose that everything I write is by myself. It just worked out that way for my last couple of projects because I just didn't see it as an option. But now that I know that everyone's keying in these sessions, um, yeah, I'm definitely interested. I think that my personal like artist project is so intimate to me and like the way that I tend to write can be like hyper specific and so it takes a bit of like trust building in order to open up those songs with other people. But I will say that like that's definitely my plan and how it's looking for my second album that I'm working on and like something I'm really excited by is the prospect of writing with other people. So I am 100% open to it. I didn't really I didn't know.
And how would you say your writing process did look across this album? So, is that something that generally a song you would tend to form quite quickly? Are you someone who tends to come back to things with different bits? I mean, you said you went into the studio and obviously you hadn't completely finished, I'm supposing.
Not
In
at
some
all.
sense, it is quite a drawn out, but like, where are you seeking, like, finding sort of these inspirations for these different things from?
Yeah, I always say I am a lyric first girl. I've always been that way. I write in my phone, which literally, God forbid anything happen to this thing, 'cause I actually like I don't have it backed up. I don't know what would happen, but yeah, I start with lyrics pretty much always. I have a folder. Actually, my friend Taylor, I showed her my notes app and she laughed so hard because I start every single lyric note with the title words. So oh, she's like, how the fuck do you find anything?
Find anything, yeah.
What do you mean? And I was like, I don't know. That's how I was- But
Just get a
I guess
vibe.
I don't want to like cage it in. Oh, what I know when I sit down is that like I need to write something. That's all I know. It's like I don't really go for like a title, I guess, or I don't know. I don't know why I do it, but that's my process. And I open up the note typically when I see or I hear something like I watch a lot of old like sitcoms. in like old TV, or like if I'm watching a movie I've never seen and I hear a one-liner and I'm like, "Oh, that's clever." Usually like something kind of like emotionally driven, but is like set in like kind of a witty way, or has like some sort of twist on it. Like I feel like that's it's shown up in a couple of my songs. They Lie Down was one of those. Like I'm sure I heard it in a TV show that I was watching, like Gilmore Girls or Friends or something. And I wrote that down as a starting line. And sometimes I'll have ideas right off the bat, but sometimes I just write that down. And then a few days later, I'm like, okay, I want to write right now. And I go back and open like my recent notes and I build backwards. So that's why I think structurally in a lot of my songs, it's like there's always a lot of story filling you into like this landing line that's meant to be more of like a gut punch. And I think that that definitely is remains consistent throughout the album. But um yeah, I mean there's songs that have gotten cut that have the same kind of format. Like I know there's one episode of Gilmore Girls where um I forgot his name. Oh yeah, Richard. He's like um the world's going to hell in a handbasket. No one, I don't think most people would be like, oh, a song idea, like, yeah. But I did, and I wrote the song called Damn It, and it has yet to see the light of day. But like at the time, I was like, this rocks, like this is awesome. So I think most of my ideas come from just like the media that I consume, and everything I'm ingesting, and then lyrics first always. I usually let it sit for a couple days. That's how I tend to know if an idea is gonna stick or not. If like a couple days later I'm still thinking about it, then I'll sit down to write it out. And if not, it just goes into the graveyard of my notes app and no one ever sees it.
And what you just said then as well, I'm drawing what you previously said about having those Zoom calls of choosing sort of the songs that we're gonna make it onto the first
Yeah.
album. Was that a difficult process for you? Was there songs that, you know, you were really not sure whether we're going to make it or not make it? Or was that something that came quite easily? Were you set on it being a like a 10-song album?
I was not set on it being 10 songs. I like budget wise and time wise, we knew it would probably end up being around 10, but I didn't go into it specifically with that number. I'm happy that that's how it turned out because once we had those 10 songs, I was like, this makes sense. This makes perfect sense. And these all need to go out together for sure. But yeah, like I said, that process was like weirdly easy. I have never like me and Cam have never agreed on things so fast before, and we like sat down and every transition made sense. Everything once we like started putting together a puzzle. But it's not always been that way. Like the EP was one where I cut a lot of songs. The EP was originally meant to be an album. And then I ended up splitting it into two like what I called sister EPs because they were kind of cut from the same cloth. But again, at this point in time, I was still being like heavily deterred from putting out a full length album. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll do another EP. And regardless of what you want to call it on streaming services, once you hit 7 songs, anything 7 songs and above, they call it an album anyway. And so it's really just up to you narratively to like see how many songs you end up with when you finish telling the story you want to tell. And with The Hill I Die On EP, that one was a bit more Frankenstein together. That's why there's like some more like musical transitions at like the ends and beginnings of songs that you can hear because I was really worried about tying all of them together. And thankfully I think it worked out, but that was a lot harder than the album was for sure.
Are you someone that generally listens to like projects as projects, or would you say you're like a playlist listener?
Oh, I'm definitely a project listener.
I could
Like,
sort of tell from the way you were talking about that, yeah.
yeah, I think that it's so important to I don't know. I think if I know artists, um, and if they operate anything close to how I do or my friends do, like all my friends pretty much make music, and everyone is really very intentional about the work they put out, and if it's going out in a project with other songs, like there is a reason that it made the cut. There's a reason that it's in track number 4 place instead of track number 1. Like, I do think there's a bit more intention behind it than people assume. And maybe that's not always the case. Like, I'm sure that there are lots and lots of artists who are signed to labels that maybe are not as committed to like artist development, and they don't get as big of a say in like what actually ends up going out. And maybe those projects feel a bit less intentional, and so people are more comfortable listening to them in shuffle, which is crazy. Um, but yeah, I'm definitely a front to back listener, and I think right now, with everything going on in the current administration, I'm like in such a kick of wanting to like capture and hold tightly like any form of physical media that I can. And so if you run it back to the CDs and the vinyls, you have no choice. You can't
Yeah.
hit shuffle on that. So I think that's kind of an homage in a way.
Yeah, no, someone told me the other day that I should like be a playlist curator, and I'm like, I don't make my own playlists. Like I solely listen to like projects. I was like, I would be rubbish at that. Um, I wanted to ask bit of a specific one, I guess. If you had a song that you were excited to share and a song that you were nervous to share. So ones that you obviously, I would hope you were excited to share all of them, but if there was a standout one that really you were excited to, and then one that you were a little bit more hesitant about, not necessarily the song in itself, but just being shared to the public.
Yeah, um I think I was very excited to share and release House from this last album, because that one had some sort of magic about it. Like, when we had a lot of mix rounds with that song. Like, when it first started, the drum groove was entirely different, and it sounded like a completely different song, to be honest. And we kept sending back and forth mixes, because at this point I was not in LA anymore. I was back in New York. And so my producers and I were working remotely. And so they would send me mixes and I would review, and I'd be like, okay, like here's what I think, right? And send them my notes back. And for some reason, we just like couldn't get this one sounding how I thought in my head it should sound. But sometimes, like, especially if you're not privy to like all the production terms or like the engineering glossary, it's sometimes hard to like translate what it is that you're envisioning to a producer. And I think some artists would say that they struggle with that. I definitely do. Um, but I found a way. Thankfully, my producers are also like very close friends of mine. And so when I'm like, oh, here's this weird word to try and describe what I'm feeling, they're like, okay, I understand what you're saying. And for House, it was this moment where we finally like unlocked what it was meant to sound like. And the key reference was Spring into Summer by Lizard Calvine. Like, that was meant to be the like direct influence for that song. And the second that I said that, they were like, "Oh, okay." And then the next mix, I was like, "This is it. This is perfect." So I think that one was really exciting for me, because it felt like might be crazy to say, but it felt like the first song from my discography that I would actively listen to as a listener. And I wouldn't normally say that about my own music. I think this album is the closest that I've gotten to like wanting and having the desire to listen to my own stuff. Like, I always separated in my head what I make from like the artists that I really, really love and admire, like Searows and Lizzie and Leith and Jensen. Like, I reach for their stuff, but I never had felt the same way about my own music. And even though there's a ton of crossover between like the audiences, like they are very much one and the same, but I finally felt that way with House. So that was exciting for me for sure. And then nervous, I would say I was pretty scared to put out Embarrassing, which is from my second EP. Um that one, oh, that whole EP just came at such an interesting time for me, and it was the first time I was putting music out that I felt was like pretty obviously about certain experiences and certain people, where I could not gauge what the reaction was going to be. For example, like my first EP was 4 songs about the same kind of experience, and I was still like, I was on speaking terms with the person that I wrote about when it came out. And so I was able to like sit with them while they first listened to it for the first time. So I knew what the reaction was. And so my second view was the first time I was like, well, I don't know who's going to listen to this or how they're going to feel, but I try in like being honest and hyper specific to still remain kind in my writing. And like if there's ever been a song I feel like is not that way, it does not get released. And that's only happened a few times where I was like, all right, this was clearly written in like a period of grief or anger, and it's like I don't feel this is very
Yeah.
representative of what I'm trying to do. But embarrassing was a unique case where I felt like it was very pointed and like very cutting, at least compared to what I had released up until that point. And it was about like a very dear friend that I was no longer friends with, and that whole situation was so god awful. And I felt like it was very obvious, and I did not know how it was going to go over, but it ended up being fine. And I do know that he ended up listening to that EP and loved it. So in the clear there, but I was definitely nervous for a long while about that. Also, like the production on that song was the most like rock that we had ever really gone. Because everything before that was just like me and my guitar. So that was also kind of nerve-wracking on that front as well.
Lovely. Also wanted to ask about artwork and visuals for the album. So where you sort of drew your influences from there, what you were trying to put across and create when making them.
Yeah, I had a whole Pinterest board that I sent to my photographer Isabel, and I had like I wanted it to feel mm, I wanted to feel very one-sided. Like that was my main goal. Like every song on the album is kind of detailing this like relationship that very evidently was like I was head over heels and this person was like very in and out and non-committal. Even though it was all of those things negatively, when it was, like at its best and its most like precious, it was also something very sweet. And I wanted to capture hopefully both of those things. So we started with like initially I really wanted um another person. Like I wanted the love interest to be in the cover art as well. And there was a lot of stuff that I looked at on Pinterest of like how to capture like me literally being in love and this person kind of being indifferent, but still choosing to be there. That was the initial um, kind of pitch. And then I saw on Pinterest this one picture of this girl running that was taken from an above shot. And I was like, I don't know how the fuck we can do that, but we have to figure it out.
Mm.
And I sent it to Isabel and she was like, oh yeah, I think we can do this. So we went to Central Park and there's this like bridge. There's a lot of bridges in Central Park, to be fair, but we were on like the Upper East Side of Central Park, and there's this like heavily forested area with a lot of trees and greenery, and then there's this little bridge that goes over because there's like a running track basically above, and underneath like there's just another entrance to the park. And I was like, okay, what if you went up there and I just ran? It's like a very short distance. It was so embarrassing, but it was like probably a 6 foot like stretch, and she was up on the bridge and I was just running back and forth. Like I'm sure if you saw like a time lapse of it, it was just like but yeah, it took us a while to get like a couple shots we thought could work, and then my brother and I kind of hit the edit room with all of that. But I thought it was cool because it felt like you couldn't tell if I was running away from or towards something, which to me encapsulated the same feeling we initially set out to find. So that's how the cover art kind of ended up becoming what it is.
Very nice. Promoting the album, you also shared quite a few like behind the scenes bits. Is that something that is important for you, not just for yourself, but to share with others, sort of the process of making?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's I don't know, from my favorite artists, like granted, a lot of my favorite artists are like very cool and mysterious and like not super online, which is very admirable and something I wish I could be. But I also really appreciate when artists bring you in behind the curtain a little bit. And I think, um, especially now with like fraudulent streaming battles and AI artists, whatever the hell that means, I think it's really cool to like humanize as much as you can um what you're doing. And it doesn't have to make sense to everyone. Like I'm not saying that to mean that you have to be digestible or relatable to everyone because you just won't be and that should not be your goal, but I have found the most like success and I found that I have felt closest to my audience when I do those things. So I do like to share the process and also because like it holds me accountable and it like lets people understand how long it can really take to put out music. Like I make the grave mistake of posting songs on TikTok that are like a verse and a chorus and it will go viral and everyone's like, please put this out. Is this on Spotify? I'm like, girl, like I don't even
It's
remember
not
what
harsh on TikTok.
like I do not remember anything about this song. Like I hit record, I hit pause, and I went to sleep. Like, so I think it's also helpful in that way, transparency wise, because it makes people understand a bit more, maybe who are non-musicians or not in the music world, to be like, oh, it actually takes a long time to do this. Understood.
For sure. Gonna ask some big questions now.
Yeah.
Favorite part of the job, which I feel like is very big. So if maybe that's something you can't quite narrow down sort of within like creating, performing, connecting, maybe
Mhm.
something that you would say is like your current focus.
Okay. Um, Favorite part of the job has to just be writing. Like, I am never more at peace than when I'm just in my room by myself writing a song and putting together like lyrics that I think are funny and witty and like just again gut punching. And I think um I don't know, I've never felt smarter than when I'm writing music. I'm not someone who like really excelled academically. Like I got by literally by the skin of my teeth through high school and college, and so I feel like yeah, it's the most rewarding to string together words that really like accurately depict um how I'm feeling. I think that's a really cool part of the job. And then my current focus is definitely performance because it actually is my least favorite part of the job. Um, I just, for so long, I didn't have a consistent band. And so that meant to me, I always associated like booking a gig with like scrambling to find musicians to play with me and like putting together a set list. And it always felt rushed. I always felt underprepared and I felt like I wasn't performing well. So, a lot of this last year and a lot of this next year is um, going to be defined by really honing in on my performing skills and my preparation. So I've invested in like quite a quite a bit. I got in-ears for my last show, which was like absolutely game changing and like being able to hear yourself when you're on stage just instantly kind of soothes the nerves. So that's a big focus of mine right now.
Do you have any like pre-show rituals, any things that you try and do to sort of help you? Nothing. Haven't got
Literally
like
think the most relaxed that I've ever been during a show was when I played Mercury Lounge in New York with my friends and there wasn't a ton of people in the audience. I was like, well, this doesn't matter. And I had a drink beforehand. So I think that might be my new ritual. But
advice.
right, right. But no, I think um I know I have like my tea and my cough drops.
Yeah.
That's like the most you could count as a ritual. But I probably could afford to do some like mindfulness practices and more grounding exercises before hitting the stage. But as of right now, no.
And when you're performing, do you think you have like a conscious like stream of thought? Are you thinking like elsewhere, or are you very much like just doing?
No. I was actually I was just talking to my parents about this because I'm like preparing for going on this tour in the summer, and like thank God I have a ton of time between now and then. But I was talking to them a bit about performing and like my feelings around it, and they were like, they had come to my last show in New York, and they were like, I don't get it. Like you seem so relaxed when you're on stage, like you turn into a whole different person, and like you seem fine. It doesn't come across like you're nervous, and like you sounded great. And I mean, first of all, they're my parents, so they have to say that. But second of all, I think the point is that like it's not so much wanting to alter how it comes across or how it's being perceived by the audience, but it's wanting to change how I feel in front of them.
Yeah,
It's funny
exactly.
you bring that up because I would say that like up until now, I get on stage and like I might look relaxed and like be fine, but internally I black out. Like I do not remember anything I say on stage. I do not, and like I'll get off, my friends are like, oh my God, like you were being so funny, and I was like,
I'm
I
glad.
I don't know who that was, but yeah, I tend to kind of just like go up there and do the songs. It really helps me to be with a band and like have friends who are playing with me. Like they are awesome. Like anytime I'm interacting with the band, that's when I feel most comfortable on stage. Um, but yeah, I think the goal, if college taught me anything, like I took a stage techniques class with this like beautiful professor. Her name was Shay, and she always like her main focus is like getting to the point where you're not going to this like spacey, like out of body place when you're performing, but matter of fact, like trying to do everything you can to like feel grounded and in your body, because
Mm.
that's like the best way to overcome your nerves. So that right now is kind of where I'm trying to go.
I feel like almost everyone I've ever spoke to has said the exact same thing about that sort
Oh,
of like blackout experience and like sort of wanting to be present. So
I'm
I
really,
think
really, really happy to hear you say
not just you. Um, I also like to ask everyone, I mean, this is something that I suppose people could go on for forever, but I like to give people the opportunity to highlight a struggle of working sort of within this industry, whether that be something individual or within sort of the industry pressures within the modern sort of music industry with like these advancements we have. So if there's anything in particular that you want to highlight that maybe people listening could then become more aware of.
Hmm. I think uh, it is difficult for me to like put myself in any um at the center of like any type of struggle in the industry, because I think I really do have like such a privileged and such a lucky spot. Like I have very, very loving and supportive parents and family who like believe in music as a career, which is like I think the first step and like the
Mm.
hardest for a lot of people. Like I don't think everyone can say that they have that, and they've been so supportive. Like my dad has helped me fund every piece of music that I've ever put out, and he has had no issue ever telling me that like this is something I can do and something he would believe in. And I've had a lot of resources at my disposal. That's not to say that I haven't had to work hard, but I wouldn't say that like I've necessarily struggled in the releasing music aspect and like the performing side. Like I thankfully have, like I said, a ton of music friends because I was like blessed enough to go to a music college, and so I met a lot of my network there, and everyone loves to kind of swing each other onto bills and ask everyone to perform that you know, so that it's like a bill full of your friends. So I've been lucky enough to like perform through that most of the time. But I think what I would say is like challenging first first most is I think the lack of knowledge for maybe people that aren't in the industry around how long it takes and like what actually goes into being able to record and release music. And everyone finds ways around it, right? Like I've chosen to work with a production team, and um that's amazing, but there's a lot of people who self-produce because of how much it costs.
Mm.
And it takes a long time to like pick up the skills required to do this kind of career because like no one really teaches you. And like I said, there's not a shadow period or like an entry level position that like comes before being famous, right? Like there's not a way to do it before you're just doing it.
Yeah,
So most of it is just like a guessing game and trying to expand your reach and expand your audience in any way that you can. So I think that part is hard because I think not most music consumers don't think about it that way, especially because before, when you were signed um, to a distributor or a publisher or label, you were, I think, getting a lot bigger of a push and a lot more support than you are now. Right now, there's so many artists. Like I can't stress enough how many people are trying to do this. Um, and just like how oversaturated some parts of the industry are. And so getting the support required to like really um get somewhere and get some momentum is really, really, really difficult, hard to come by. So I think yeah, that's probably the biggest challenge that I would say for someone in my position. That doesn't even get into like people who are queer or people who are not white, and what the music industry looks like for them, which is like I think a whole other and much more fascinating conversation. Um, but yeah.
for sure. Wanted to finish up just asking a little bit about the future, so what you've got planned for the coming year. It's nice that we're filming that. I really like filming on like the beginning of the year because it feels
Yeah.
like really nice time to sort of ask all these questions. But yeah, what you have, you briefly obviously mentioned your tour earlier and things that you're wanting to work towards.
Yeah, I'm right now like my main focus is like preparing for this tour and I like can't I don't I don't know how I actually know. I resent the statement like I don't know how this happened because m most people like everyone's working towards
Mm.
something and so I don't want to like act oblivious for no reason. I was just so shocked to get the offer, but um you saw this is airing after the 13th, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great, great. I am opening for Searows on the West Coast leg of his tour in June, which is like such a dream for someone like me, myself, who has just been like harassing him online for years. Like all I've ever done is tag him in everything I'm doing and cover his songs, and I've been so obnoxious. Like I'm so obnoxious on the internet, and it worked. Um, so that's my
I
main
love
focus.
that. Sorry, that's the best statement ever.
For me though, like I have no manager, I have no label, I have no real team, and I got the offer and I was like, surely this is fake. This is obviously not real, and this is a really mean prank to pull on me because I'm notoriously like one of his biggest fans. But no, it was real. So now that that's real, I have to figure out how to do it. No, I'm kidding, but it's so exciting and it's gonna be so fun and so great. And it's ending with a hometown show in Portland for not only Ciro's but also myself. So that's really, really, really beautiful and it's gonna be such like a kismet way to wrap up um the tour. So anyways, that's the main thing. And then I'm also working on album number two, which I have literally no idea when that will be out. I was going to try to record it back in November, if you can even believe that. Which would have been what, a month after my first
Yeah,
album came out.
crazy.
Um, no, yeah, wasn't it did not work for a reason, but I am still very much looking forward. I've not stopped writing for it, and I'm also really excited um by the possibility of like working with other artists and collaborating for the second album. Like there's a couple features that I have planned, friends of mine and other artists, and some co-writing that I'm really looking forward to including on album too. So those are probably the big ones. And yeah, just like performing, like I said, as much as possible to, try to feel better about it in my body internally. And yeah.
It's nice that you've got like a great way to practice on that now. Like it's sort of been
Yeah.
given to you. So yeah, hopefully you can get to the end of this year and that could be
Yeah.
something that you can sort of tick
Well,
that
it's
one.
crazy because the announcement is coming so far in advance
Mm.
of the actual
Yeah,
tour.
actually I didn't, yeah, that is, yeah.
It's cool because I'm now like gifted this time of like I have from January to June to like try to make all of his listeners fall in love with me
Yeah.
and listen
Which
to
it
like
doesn't often happen. So that's, yeah, that's
right,
lovely.
right.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that and seeing how I can increase like my impactful output of content and music and just keep engaging with the people that are supporting me.
Lovely. If you just want to give a little shout to what your social media handles are so people know where they can find you, I'll
Oh
obviously pop them all in the
yeah.
description as well. But yeah, thank you so much for chatting.
Oh my gosh, I hope that I get these right because I that my original username was taken. Okay, my Instagram is Mori Loves You, and then my TikTok, I believe, is Mori Loves You with an extra U at the end. Um, and that's about it, unless you want to find me on LinkedIn, but I don't know.
Thank you so much. It's genuinely been such an interesting conversation.
Oh my gosh,
And
thank you. I'm sorry if I talked far too long or too
no,
much.
I think it's been lovely. Yeah, very insightful. Thank you.